Hey there everyone, it's me, Aaron, and welcome to the second part of our interviews from New York Comic Con. Now, if you missed part 1 where we sat down and talked with Jim Zub, then a card for it will be popping up right now. But for our second interview, I got a chance to talk to the creator of Spencer and Locke. Now, if you haven't heard about Spencer and Locke, then you haven't been watching this channel very long, because I have mentioned that series several times. I am a huge fan of Spencer and Locke. Back when we did the top 100 comics countdown of 2017, it was way up there on the list. We gave this series so much praise. We even put a moment from there in our top 10 moments of 2017 list. We enjoyed the series that much, so it was great to get a chance to sit down with David Pepose, the writer of the series, and we got a chance to talk with him about the future of the book, about where he got the idea for it, because it's a very creative idea, but I'll let the interview speak for itself. I'm here with someone, if you've been watching the channel for a while, then you've probably heard me mention this guy several times. He is the creator of Spencer and Locke and the brand new series, Going to the Chapel, David Pepose. How are you enjoying the con so far?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. New York Comic Con is always amazing. This is our 4-year anniversary, actually, of announcing Spencer and Locke, so it always feels like a hometown show to me. And we've just crushing it in the sales. We've already blown through all of Volume 1, and we're down to our last stock in Volume 2. Going to the Chapel has been hitting like wildfire. It's just an amazing show filled with so many great fans, and it's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I remember when I came up to your table and you told me that, like, this is Saturday that we're recording this. You had already sold out of all of Volume 1 that you brought, and you're about halfway through with Volume 2, so...
I brought about 100 pounds worth of stock from Los Angeles, and I'm down to my last, like, dozen and a half copies of books. It's a great feeling, and it just shows, it speaks to the creativity of the rest of the creative team on both Spencer and Locke and Going to the Chapel. Jorge Santiago Jr., Jason Smith, and Colin Bell, Ringo nominees and well-deserved for their work on Spencer and Locke. And then Gavin Guidry, Liz Kramer, and Ariana Mayer on Going to the Chapel. I wouldn't be surprised if they got some Ringo noms very soon for this. I'm so fortunate for working with teams as talented as this. It doesn't really matter what I write. The book looks so beautiful, it's kind of hard to deny. I think seeing how crazy the sales have been, I just wasn't prepared for it. I guess I'm gonna have a real slow day tomorrow, I guess I get to go home with an empty bag. It's the best reward of all.
There's nothing better than going to a con and then on your way back, like, you have, like, empty luggage. Yeah. You can fit luggage inside of luggage. It's the best feeling.
Fitting luggage inside of luggage. I fly cross country from these things. I know how to pack exactly 50 pounds into a roller bag. And so being able to pack a bag inside of another bag and only check in one bag, oh, that is like the best feeling. You guys can't even possibly understand what a relief that is for me.
So for anybody who hasn't heard me talk about this before, Spencer and Locke, it's basically, and I should probably let you explain this, but I just love the premise so much. It's basically the dark, edgy, gritty, real-world reboot of Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, I always describe it as what if Calvin and Hobbes grew up in Sin City. It's about a hard-boiled detective whose partner's his childhood imaginary friend. So it's a little True Detective, it's a little Fight Club, and it's 100% a love letter to classic Bill Watterson and Frank Miller. It's a super fun book. I feel like, it's an interesting take on one of comics' most sacred cows, and I think in a lot of ways it's our love letter to trailblazers and innovators and pioneers like Bill Watterson. He is critically acclaimed and beloved by everyone, including myself, and it's well deserved. And I always just try to tell people, we never think we could possibly measure up to Bill Watterson or Frank Miller. We wouldn't even reach their boots. But I think by being able to mash together these two very, very different sensibilities and find some common ground between them, we're able to kind of play within the margins a little bit and come up with something that's a little new and different.
It is definitely very new and different, and I grew up on Calvin and Hobbes, and when I was reading that first volume, there were some deep cuts in there. Did you have to go back and reread it to remind yourself of anything? Or
I reread the entire series. As soon as we were picked up, I kind of had the broad strokes of knowing what I wanted to do, but I did a whole reread before I started writing. I wanted to do Spaceman Spiff. I wanted to do the wagon. I wanted to do the transmogrifier. I wanted to do some dinosaurs, in part because I didn't know how people were going to respond to that book. This could have been the last book I ever did. And so I wanted to make sure whatever poor artist jumped on board with me would have a portfolio piece for themselves. So I wanted to throw in sci-fi and car chases and action and dinosaurs, just so that at least they didn't can lose their career over this book. But yeah, I actually did a full reread for Volume 1 and a second reread for Volume 2, and I'm actually in the middle of a third reread for Volume 3. You find new things. I think that's the best part about Bill Watterson as an artist. He's simple, but he's able to add so much complexity to it and so much specificity. And the things you notice when you're a kid reading the strip versus revisiting it as an adult, it adds a rereadability to that series. And I think that's part of the reason why he's really kind of the best of the best.
And what's really amazing to me is that when Volume 2 came out, I looked at that and I went, how are you going to do Volume 2? You used everything from Calvin and Hobbes in Volume 1. And then he introduced Beetle Bailey, and we were just talking about Volume 3, and I don't know what you're allowed to say so far, but you've got more stuff planned for that. What was the process of figuring out, okay, this is how we're going, this is the next person we're going with, this is the next thing that we're going with?
Beetle Bailey and Garfield, they've been on the agenda since we first pitched the book. I always tend to think of what's the first arc, but if people like the first arc, I have ideas in my back pocket. I thought to myself, what are the kind of threats that police officers face? And for Beetle Bailey, I thought terrorism. I thought that would be a really interesting and timely thing to analyze with Beetle Bailey, who's normally known as sort of this slacker private chilling on the army base. But Roach Riley, our analog of the character, he's seen some stuff overseas. His philosophy is once you've had the worst day of your life, nothing else can hurt you. So he's determined to inflict the worst day of our lives on everyone back home. And I thought without spoiling too much about Volume 3, I thought to myself, what about a serial killer? And so, our Garfield-centric arc, for people who have checked out our teaser, I mean, there's no coincidence why we have some broken peanut shells next to the Spencer doll's feet. And so we're tackling sort of the best of the best. It's the trifecta here. We figured, 3 might be the last thing we ever do, and we want to make sure we end on a high note. And, we're standing on the shoulders of giants with this one. And Spencer and Locke, their relationship and dynamic has been really tested in our second volume. And we're going to pay that off in a big way in Volume 3.
Nice. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the newest project that you have, because only one issue of this has come out so far. By the time that this video goes up, probably 2 issues will have gone up. This thing has already exploded. Like, I saw Patton Oswalt talking about this thing, and we were just talking about how that was a big experience for you, but the new series is Going to the Chapel. This is very different from Spencer and Locke, so it shows that you have a lot of range in there. Do you want to tell everybody what the basic idea of that was?
Yeah, well, so Going to the Chapel, for those who aren't aware of it, it's Die Hard meets Wedding Crashers. It's about a gang of bank robbers that thinks robbing rich people's weddings would be easier than robbing banks, and finding out just how wrong they are. I describe it as if Quentin Tarantino had a baby with Arrested Development, who then chose to bring that baby to a wedding. It's a super fun book. I felt like romantic comedies got a bad rap, not just in the direct market, but in pop culture as a whole. I think there are a lot of women who feel like they're considered basic if they admit they like rom-coms, and there's a lot of men who feel like their masculinity is being threatened if they enjoy rom-coms. For me, I think romantic comedies, you look at About Time, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, 500 Days of Summer, there's a wide range of stories you can tell using romance as a foundation. I think it's just as flexible of a genre as sci-fi or crime or superheroes or fantasy. And so I wanted to write a rom-com that I thought everybody would enjoy. So it's kind of a stealth rom-com wrapped into an action comedy crime pitch. The story is about Emily Anderson. She's a conflicted bride dealing with a serious case of cold feet. But before she can say anything, her wedding is held hostage by a gang of bank robbers known as the Bad Elvis Gang. Unfortunately, Emily's family is super rich and super dysfunctional, and what should have been a simple smash and grab turns into a full-blown hostage situation. And it puts Emily in the middle of having to navigate all these different people to find out what exactly her own happily ever after is. It's a love story. It's about commitment and trust and dysfunctional families, and what is the leap of faith it takes to say till death do us part. I felt like these are kind of fun, emotional journeys that we could take especially with a female action lead, which we don't get enough of these days. And so Spencer and Locke, in a lot of ways, I consider that to be fan bait. Going to the Chapel, it's direct market counter programming, and seeing the way that people have responded to both books, especially with Patton Oswalt picking up the book, which was completely unexpected and completely generous of him. It's been very heartening and very encouraging. I know there were a lot of publishers who told me flat out, there's no way you can sell a rom-com in today's market, and we're really happy to have proved them wrong.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the con. It is amazing how well this is going, and I got on Spencer and Locke. I mean, not to be like a hipster and be like I knew about before it was cool, but I got into it when it was at our local comic book store, and I just saw positive reviews popping up and went, all right, I'll check this thing out. And Man, I'm glad I got into that thing when I did. So it's so good to see this thing explode. But thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, thank you. Thanks again to David Pepose for agreeing to sit down and do an interview with us. I said it many times before, but I'll say it again. Spencer and Locke is a great imaginative series, and his latest book, Going to the Chapel, is taking off like a rocket. So it was wonderful to get a chance to talk to him. And if you guys want to see me do more interviews like this, let us know that in the comments down below. I don't normally do interviews, this was totally new for me, but if you liked it, then maybe I'll try and squeeze in some more interviews in the future. So thanks again to everyone I interviewed and all the fans I got to talk to at New York Comic Con. If you want to see more comic book videos from us, then hit that subscribe button and follow us around the web at Professor Thorgy. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time.